Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Podcast here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, on this glorious Thursday, September 21st, 2017. And boy, do we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. Doing this show live today. Hello to everybody already in the live chat board. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's great to have you here. And on this show, what we like to do is just talk about our favorite things. I like to talk about movies, like to talk about TV shows, all things going on in the world of entertainment. And here's how today's show is going to go. I got 3 topics that I picked out from the world of entertainment that caught my attention. We're going to do those 3 topics, and then I'm going to take a bunch of questions and topics that you guys have sent in to me. How do you get a topic or a question into me? It's simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. Just send in your questions anytime. Couple of important notes. Important note number 1, make sure you keep your email to 90 words or less. Otherwise, I can't pick it because I wouldn't even be able to fit it on the screen. And also, please make sure to understand that I can't get every question on, but I do pick out the ones that I think are most interesting, that I think you guys might find interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all those topics, and if you want a sneak peek at those topics, look in the description notes of this video. You'll see all the topics we're going to be talking about. And then I'm going to save a few minutes at the end of the show to take some of the live questions coming in from you guys in the chat board. And I'm already seeing Jose Pacino saying, greetings and salutations from London, John. Hello from everybody in London and everywhere in Europe and everywhere that's not in the US or Canada. It's great to have you guys here. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get on to the first topic of the day. And, this dropped just as I was starting yesterday's episode of the John Campea Podcast, and I should bring it up now. Frank Castle's back, baby. We got the Punisher trailer, a new Punisher spot for the new Netflix series dropped online yesterday. And wow. I mean, they weren't kidding. But my friend who first tweeted me about it said, hey, John, like the new Punisher spot's online, and it's an R-rated spot. And I thought, okay, so it's going to show some violence, because typically the Netflix series don't do a lot of R-rated, like heavy R-rated stuff in their trailers, right? They don't typically do a lot of that stuff. But oh my goodness, this one was pretty thick and heavy. This was pretty thick and heavy with the old R-rated material, which I know made a lot of you guys very happy. I know it made me pretty darn happy too. It was very well done. It set it up. It gave us the classic setup to Frank Castle, the classic Punisher, and it went back to an origin, because we never got an origin really for the Punisher in Daredevil season 2. We never got a chance to glimpse into really what his origin is. We got a few flashbacks, but never truly the origin. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know at this point if the Punisher series is going to be an origin story, or if these things that we see with his wife and everything and his family, losing his family, if these are things that are going to be part of flashbacks, and that this show, this series, this season of Punisher takes place after the events of Daredevil season 2. And I don't know if it's something that happens during the events of when he loses his family. I don't know what time period this show happens in. I'm sure they must have written about it somewhere, but I haven't seen it. My impression at this point from the trailer is that it may do a little jumping back and forth, a little bit like Arrow does, like a little bit of, it happens today after the events of Daredevil season 2, but then it jumps back and forth between flashing back to things that happened to him in his past, i.e. losing his family, and then to the present now, much like they do on Arrow, where things happen today, but then we flash back to, Oliver's time on the island. So I don't know, but it was, seriously, if this trailer is any indication of what we're going to be getting from a new Punisher show, then it's going to be pretty damn violent. He was already pretty damn violent just from what we saw in Daredevil. He was already pretty damn violent in a couple of the other things we've seen, but man, this is going to be a violent show. And I know for a Punisher show, that is exactly what a lot of people are looking for. But I'm curious to know what you guys think, and you guys in the chat board, like, is this the type of, you saw the trailer. Was this the type of trailer you were expecting? Was it better than you were expected? Were you disappointed with it? Like, and where do you think this Punisher show is going to take place? Is it going to take place in the past? Is it going to take place in the present? Or is it going to be like what I'm kind of suspecting it's going to be, and I could be dead wrong, about it jumping back and forth between present events and then reflecting back on past events that give context to present events? Jump into the comments section and let me know what you guys think. All I know is that the trailer was gritty. It was visceral. It was exactly what we wanted to see. It's good to see that he's got the old skull on the body armor there. It's nice to see that. So, of course, we got a peek of that in Daredevil Season 2, but it's nice to see that they're cracking it out here. And, you know, I'll just remind everybody again, I'm a big fan of John Bernthal. I like John Bernthal. But when they announced that he was going to be Punisher on Daredevil Season 2, I was like, wow, I like this actor, but I don't know if I see that as a fit. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to wait and see, but I'm not sure that I see that as a fit. And then I saw him the first episode that he appeared on Daredevil, and I was like, nope, totally sold. This guy is the new Punisher. And, you know, in the history of the Punisher, even though there have been some good movies, Punisher Warzone, even though there have been some bad movies, I think everybody who's played the Punisher has actually done a really good job playing the Punisher. That doesn't mean their movie was good, but I think everybody we've seen, other than maybe Dolph Lundgren, I think everybody we've seen play the Punisher so far has done a pretty good job. I thought Ray Stevenson was a great Punisher, and I thought Warzone was a great movie. I know it got a lot of hate. I don't know why. I thought that was a wonderful movie. But anyway, I really like John Bernthal's Punisher, and I'm very excited. This trailer just got me even more excited to see this show, so I can't wait for it to come. All right, let's move on to the next topic now, and that is Game of Thrones. Now, look, I am not the world's biggest Game of Thrones fan. I enjoy Game of Thrones. And I loved this last season. I thought this last season was just superb. I just loved it. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of Game of Thrones overall, I mean, I really have appreciated the last couple seasons a lot. And I've always liked the show. I have. Now, because I'm not the world's biggest fan, I'm going to acknowledge this right now. I don't keep my ear to the ground about every whisper and every rumor and every detail coming out about Game of Thrones. I kind of just basically wait and watch the show. But I stumbled across this report on Variety the other day where this, HBO has this new prequel in development. I was like, okay, well, we suspected they might do that. But it's the 5th prequel they have in development. Now, unless I'm reading the story wrong, and I don't think I read the story wrong, Warner Brothers has not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 prequel projects in development at the moment. 5. None of the spin-offs, apparently, are going to happen present day. None of the spin-offs are going to involve characters that we already know from the show. None of the spin-offs happen in the future. Apparently, all of them happen in the past, and none of them, and you would think, well, if there's 5 happening in the past, one of them will be about Robert's Rebellion, right? Nope. Robert's Rebellion isn't going to be one of the topics either. So it's like, a 5? Maybe a couple, I don't know. I simply do not know the answer to this. I'm speculating out loud. I don't know if maybe a couple of them are standalone movies of the week. Maybe if they're going to do a couple of Game of Thrones 2.5 hour television movies. And then the rest, I don't know if these are 5 prequel TV shows. And if so, how far apart are they spread time-wise? Does one go back 1,000 years and then one goes back 800 years and one goes back 600 years and one goes back... I just don't know at this point. Now, I know Game of Thrones is a worldwide global phenomenon. We all know this. That's fine. That's great. But it doesn't matter how big it is. It seems like having 5 in development is a little bit much. It's just a little bit much to put. It seems like you're getting ahead of yourself a little bit. Yes, the main show, incredibly successful. Why don't you see if 1 or 2 spin-off shows can also be successful before really jumping the gun and putting 5 into development? I just found that wacky. I mean, I've never even heard of a TV show doing 2 or 3 spin-offs at the same time. We've seen television shows have 2 or 3 spin-offs, or 1 or 2 or more spin-offs, but never 5 in development at the same time. So this is breaking new ground. I'm not sure. Look, isn't there something to be said, though, that if maybe instead of having 5 spin-offs, why not just continue the story? I don't know. Instead of having, if you're so desperate to keep that Game of Thrones audience, why don't you do 1 spin-off and combined all the resources that you're putting into the other 4 spin-offs and just keep this main storyline going. I mean, life goes on. No matter how Game of Thrones ends, life does go on in Westeros, right? So there've got to be stories to tell. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought on that. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Are you excited for 5 spin-offs? Do you think like me that that's a little bit too much to bite off and too much to chew at once? Or do you think maybe, no, hell no, that's not even enough. Let's do 10, let's do 20. I want to know what you guys think. Jump into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's move on to the next topic today. Also, sticking in the world of it's all television today, as a matter of fact, in our news items. This one has to do with the Watchmen. Now, we've known for some time that Damon Lindelof was, signed on to develop an HBO Watchmen series. So that's been talked about for a long time. But what not a lot of people realize was even though he was brought in to develop it, there was never an order for a pilot. Like they were saying, yeah, develop it and let's see how it starts to come together. And then we'll decide, this is also HBO, and then we'll decide whether or not we actually want to do a pilot. Okay. Now, there are a lot of television shows that hit this stage. Some development, and then, 8 out of 10 never see light of day. And then a couple of them do get a pilot. And then even rarer, do they actually go on to series and become successful. But it got announced yesterday that Damon Lindelof let people know that, nope, he's now officially putting his writer's room together. HBO has ordered a pilot of Watchmen. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm of two minds of this. On one hand, I'm always excited to see a good comic book property or graphic novel property get made into a live action story. Always excited about that. But I'm also one of those people that didn't love the Watchmen movie. I know it seems like we're half and half, like half people absolutely love it, half the people hate it. I'm a little bit in the middle. I didn't love it. I thought it was okay. I love the graphic novel, but I thought the movie itself was okay. So I'm not really quite sure. And I don't know if it lends itself to a series so much, but maybe it does. Maybe it totally does. Look, bottom line is Damon Lindelof, very talented dude. Not everything he touches turns to gold, but he's put out a lot of really good stuff, especially in our genres that we seem to like so much. So I'm curious about it. I'm anxious. And, I'm glad it got picked up for pilot. Whether or not I really want to see a show is going to depend a lot on what I think about the pilot and how I react to the pilot. I know a lot of you guys are probably the same way. You're probably waiting to see, let's see a trailer, let's see the pilot before we get too excited. And that's kind of where my head is at right now. Like, I want to see this pilot, I want to see this trailer. But in general, I think this is going to make a lot of people happy. So it's official. HBO has ordered a pilot. There is at least going to be a pilot for the Watchmen. So you guys excited about that? Are you middle of the road? Do you not care? Jump in the comments section and let me know what you guys think. All right, with those 3 stories out of the way now, it's time for me to get to that part of the show where I take the topics and questions that you guys sent in to me. So let's dive into it with the first question today. And the first question today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Dennis Fox. And Dennis Fox writes, I was wondering if you already had a chance to watch the Zack Snyder short, Snow, Steam, Iron. I'm happy to see him back and his work is visually amazing as usual, but instead, for some reason, it seems to have revived the old controversy about violence against women in his movies. What are your thoughts on him returning and the way that he did? Thanks a lot for the question, man. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, director Zack Snyder, who directed films like 300, he directed Man of Steel, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. He directed Batman vs. Superman. Obviously, he stepped away from Justice League because of family tragedy, and he just put out online a new short film that he did, apparently all entirely shot with an iPhone. And you know what? Full marks to him. It looked beautiful. And full marks to I'm not an iPhone guy. I'm an Android guy. But full marks. Credit where it's due, man. The footage looked amazing. I mean, he shot that short film, Snow, Steam, Iron, all on an iPhone, apparently. And it looks beautiful. And being consistent with a Zack Snyder project, it is visually beautiful. This little short film he did, and look it up online if you haven't. It's on YouTube right now. Look it up online. And it is visually beautiful. It kind of lacks a narrative. There's really no dialogue. But it's a visual storytelling. And really, even if you're somebody who hates Zack Snyder, you'll acknowledge Zack Snyder is a very gifted visual storyteller. And I think that's really showcased with this thing. Now, I'm going to admit, I'm not 100% sure of everything that's going on, but I get the basic idea. Now, as far as the controversy that kind of split out about violence against women is things, well, look, I'm one of these guys. I'm very sensitive about how, I'm not hyper sensitive, but I'm very sensitive about how women are portrayed in films and things like that. But I'll be honest with you, I personally don't get the controversy because it's not like he has violence against women and he's glorifying violence against women. When they're in any of his art, it seems like to me, it strikes me at any rate, that when there's any violence, in particular violence against women, and like there's violence against men too, but there's violence against women, it always seems to be in the context of highlighting what a monster somebody must be to do that. It never glorifies, at least my interpretation of it, is that Zack Snyder's work never glorifies violence against women. If anything, it highlights the type of monster and jackhole you'd have to be to commit violence against women. And I've got a soft spot for violence against women. There was a history in my family of violence against women. I'm very sensitive. I got no time for anybody, any man who raises a hand against a woman. I just don't. I mean, there are exceptions. A woman's a combat MMA fighter, attacks you in the street, you defend yourself. Yes. But you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say men who raise a hand against women. I've got a real problem with it. But when I watch Zack Snyder's work, and it just so happens that the victim of violence in a video happens to be a woman, I have never interpreted his work as glorifying that. I've always interpreted it as highlighting the villainy and the evil of perpetrating violence against women. And then if you take that one step further, usually in Zack Snyder's work, women who have violence perpetrated against them, whether it's the Queen in 300, the girls in Sucker Punch, or this short film, the women generally tend to get righteous vengeance, my friends. The women in his movies tend to usually get their pound of flesh, and they tend to get their good share of righteous vengeance. And this short film of his is no exception to that. So look, I completely respect people who are concerned about violence against women as portrayed in our media. I completely respect that position. And I'm not saying anybody is wrong. All I'm saying is that from my perspective, as I sit down as an audience member and watch Zack Snyder's work, in particular this short film, I don't see the glorification of violence against women. I see the highlighting of the villainy against people who would perpetrate such an act, and then the glorious, sweet, righteous revenge the victims of that original violence get to take on their assailants. Again, I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm just saying that's my perspective. That's how I see it. I'd be curious to know how you guys see it. Jump into the comments section and leave your thoughts below. All right, moving on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Jack. And Jack writes, "Hey, John, huge fan since the AMC days." Thank you so much, Jack. "My question is this, and I'm honestly surprised that no one seems to be talking about it. Because Disney has announced that they will be launching their own streaming service in 2019, and that all Disney, Pixar, Marvel, etc. movies will be removed from Netflix. What will happen to the Netflix shows, i.e. Daredevil, The Defenders, and so on, and the soon-to-air Punisher? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, this is something we've talked about a couple of times. But as most of you guys know by now, Disney has announced that in 2019, they are launching their own mainline streaming service. And they are pulling all their Star Wars films, their Marvel films, their other Disney films, all that kind of stuff is going to be moved onto the Disney streaming service, which is understandable. They're going to be doing some original television programming. They're going to be doing some original movies for their streaming service. They got a whole lot of content they can do. The question that keeps coming up, though, is what about the Netflix series? Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, Punisher. What's going to happen with those? There hasn't been a lot of word on that, except this. In the original press release that came out to announce a streaming service and that Disney was going to be moving a lot of their stuff, in the original report in Variety, there was a very, very key phrase. And I'll get to the key phrase in a second. But what Variety said is that the Netflix original series, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, etc., will not be moving. Okay, will not be moving. But then there are these key two words, okay? For now. So the report said that they're moving these movies and these movies and moving all this kind of stuff. When it comes to the Netflix original Marvel properties, they're not moving for now. So what that tells me, and this is just me interpreting, I don't have any insider information on this, okay? Let's just be clear on that. The way I interpret that is that they probably have existing deals with Netflix that probably extends beyond 2019 when it comes to those TV shows. But when those deals are done, Disney will move them, or will at least pull them. They won't allow anybody else to carry their Marvel content. So again, this is just how I'm interpreting it. The way I'm interpreting they're going to stay put for now is that they must have a deal, that their current deal with Netflix must extend beyond 2019. And they're just going to have to wait until those deals lapse before they make any changes. But it could mean something else entirely. It absolutely could. But that's just the way I see it and the way I interpret it. How do you guys interpret it? Jump into the comments section and let me know what you think is going to be the future of the Marvel Netflix properties on Netflix. All right, we move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Jack Spittal, who writes, with the overall meh reaction to Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, do you think it will gain a sequel? I personally hope it will. What do you think? Yeah, thanks a lot, man. One of the movies I was really looking forward to this year was absolutely Kingsman, The Golden Circle. I was, like everybody else, I was really excited to see this guy. Harry was going to come back, even though I had no idea how they were going to explain him coming back. And if you saw my review for Kingsman, The Golden Circle is up on my YouTube channel right now. If you saw my review, you know my reaction was pretty much that was, okay, it's all right. It's all right. Huge step down from the first one, in my opinion. Not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. But I think the movie made a lot of mistakes that makes it not worthy of that original Kingsman. That was just so brilliant and so good. I wasn't happy. I mean, one of the big questions a lot of us were asking was, how are they going to explain Harry's return? I'm not very satisfied as an audience member with what their plot mechanism was to have Harry come back. I'm not happy with it. They have way too much of a certain cameo in it. It's a little bit of a misleading ad campaign too, where it's like they make you think Channing Tatum is this big character, so you're anticipating this character. It's going to be a lot in the movie. He's in like 5 minutes of the movie and he's out. I mean, they ramp up the silliness factor. Like the first Kingsman has a good dose of silliness. Like there's 0 to 10. Like the first Kingsman brought the silliness up to 5. I mean, just right there on the edge where it's the perfect amount of silliness that blended well with all the other stuff. But then for whatever reason, Matthew Vaughn, who I adore as a filmmaker, Matthew Vaughn decided to take the silliness up to 9 or 10. And it kind of loses me a lot in the movie. And so I watched Kingsman, and a lot of the reactions I'm getting from a lot of people are, yeah, it's okay. Kingsman, The Golden Circle is okay. It's probably worth checking out, but just adjust your expectations accordingly. Don't go in thinking that this movie is going to be as good as the first Kingsman, because it's not. In my opinion, it's not at any rate. So the question is, will it get with the lower reaction to Kingsman, The Golden Circle than what they got in Kingsman, the first Kingsman? Should we expect that there's going to be a part 3? It all comes down to one thing, man. Box office. I mean, yes, they're starting behind the 8 ball, that it's not going to be received quite as well as the first Kingsman. But the big question is, what's the box office going to be? Because I'm going to tell you right now, Kingsman, The Golden Circle opens to $100 million opening weekend. They're going to start the engine going to get plans for Kingsman 3. They just are. It's going to happen. If it opens to $20 million, it's dead in the water. You won't see another Kingsman. And I right now have no clue. I don't have the slightest sense right now as to what Kingsman, The Golden Circle is going to open up at. I really don't. Like a lot of times when movies come in, I'll have a sense. Yeah, I think it's going to open in that $70 to $100 million range, somewhere in that window. I don't have the slightest sense. I'm not going to be surprised at all if it opens to $25 million. I'm not going to be surprised at all if it opens to $100 million. Right now, I just don't have a real gauge on it, which is kind of weird and a little bit unique, but it's the kind of situation it is. I'll be honest with you right now. I am, as of right now, I'm not really interested in a Kingsman 3. After seeing Kingsman 2, I'm not interested in a Kingsman 3. Now, don't get me wrong. If they make Kingsman 3, I'm going to get excited. And once I see the trailers, yes. But as of this moment, like if they put all the power in my hand and said, John, all you got to do is push this button and Kingsman 3 will happen. And I'll look at the button and I'll go, nah, I'm not going to push the button. Let Matthew Vaughn move on to direct some other things now and bring his creative genius to some other things. Maybe it'll be Man of Steel 2. There have been some talks about that. But honestly, right now, no, not jonesing for a Kingsman 3. All right, guys, we move on now to the last mail-in question of the day. And once I'm done this last question, I'm going to go over to you guys in the live chat board so you guys can start putting in some questions there now if you'd like. But I want to mention, you saw a little bit earlier, one of the questions came in from one of my Patreon supporters. This is my little segment. This is my commercial break, if you will, my shameless plug for my Patreon. You know, my Patreon supporters make these shows possible. We do things like exclusive audio-only versions of the podcast for our Patreon supporters. We do Patreon supporter exclusive podcasts as well. We do some live chats exclusive for the podcast. We have an exclusive Facebook group for all the Patreon supporters, and we've got a Patreon community. Check out www.patreon.com/John Campea. Check that out. Get some more information. See if you would like to be a contributor and somebody who makes this show possible. That would be awesome if you do. And if you don't, that's totally fine. I'm just glad you're here watching the show with us. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go on to the final question. And the final question comes to us from Bobby Mitchell. And Bobby Mitchell writes, I've been a big fan since the red and blue curtain days. Well, thanks a lot, man. That's been a while. War for the Planet of the Apes, which I loved, has only made $146 million domestically and could have been considered a bomb. However, it just opened in China to the tune of $62.3 million. My question is, by the end of its total box office run, will War for the Planet of the Apes be considered a box office success for Fox? Thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, War for the Planet of the Apes is doing very well internationally, and because it was in trouble of being a money loser for Fox. But as of right now, it's poised to be it's going to make money for the studio. War for the Planet of the Apes will make money for the studio, and that's good news. I like the movie too. I did not like it nearly as much as I liked Dawn for the Planet of the Apes, but I liked War for the Planet of the Apes, partially also because I was really turned off by how misleading and how, I'm not going to say fancy words, it's a giant lie. The marketing campaign for War for the Planet of the Apes is a giant lie. Like, it's, anyway, you've heard me talk about that before anyway, but the movie itself is a good, solid movie that I enjoyed. It's not in my top 5 of the year. By the end of the year, probably won't be in my top 10, but I enjoyed it very much. It's a solid movie. And it was in danger of, they made the stupid decision to open the movie the week after Spider-Man Homecoming. I have no idea what they were thinking. No idea what they were thinking. You got to at least give yourself 2 weeks buffer zone. If you're going after a similar demographic, and let's face it, a lot of us who are excited about Spider-Man Homecoming were also the same guys who are excited about War for the Planet of the Apes. If you're putting out a movie close to a big blockbuster that has a real similar target demographic as your movie, you got to give yourself at least 2 weeks buffer. So they opened that there. I don't know what they were thinking, and they suffered for it. So they were in danger for a little while, maybe being a movie that lost money for the studios. Well, international numbers stayed strong, and now they're in a position that they're actually going to make money. But here's the thing. They are literally going to fall, no matter how good it does internationally now, they are literally going to fall. War for the Planet of the Apes is going to fall hundreds of millions of dollars short of what Dawn for the Planet of the Apes did. And considering how good Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is as a movie, you would hope that the follow-up would make even more money, not hundreds of millions of dollars less. So I think people over at Fox are breathing a big sigh of relief right now that it looks like War for the Planet of the Apes is actually going to be a money maker. Not a huge money maker, but definitely a money maker. And it's not going to lose the money, which is great news. But I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I think they're also going to have to be a little bit disappointed. Because if, like, Dawn for the Planet of the Apes can make $700+ million worldwide, and everybody loved it, and everybody's excited for War for the Planet of the Apes, you got to at least hope you make just as much, if not more. And instead it's going to fall hundreds of millions of dollars short. Like right now it's in the $400 and something million range, which is good. A lot of filmmakers would kill to have a movie that makes that much money. But for the War of the Planet of the Apes, you know they were hoping for better. But at least it's not going to lose money. All right, guys, with that out of the way now, I'm going to go over to the live chat board. Now, I'm going to warn you, this can get a little awkward because I'm trying to do the show and talk and read comments at the same time, so bear with me here. I'm going to take a couple of questions here, and let's see here. Okay, Turan Kumar writes, did Warner Brothers have an early Justice League screening? What have you heard about it? Okay, so there's a rumor going around right now that Warner Brothers just did an advanced screening, a test screening, if you will, of Justice League. And the word is that it's amazing, it's fantastic, it's wonderful, all that kind of stuff, okay? Here's the thing. I didn't believe the reports when they said there was an early test screening and people said it was unwatchable. And I don't believe the reports either that say there's another test screening and everybody's saying it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't believe either of them. I know, like, I'm not saying that the sites that are reporting it didn't hear that. I believe any sites that's reporting it, I believe they heard it. I don't believe they're lying. I just don't believe that they're being fed accurate information. I didn't believe it when they said test screening and everybody says it's unwatchable. I didn't believe that. And I don't believe the other extreme. Test screening, everybody says it's amazing. I don't believe that either. Look, everybody knows what I think. I think Justice League is going to be a great movie. I think the addition of Joss Whedon is going to ensure that. I think you need to blend the visual storytelling of Zack Snyder with the narrative and dialogue capabilities of a Joss Whedon. I think you're going to end up with a really good, solid film. But I don't believe any of those reports. I don't believe any of them. So I'm not going to get my hopes up and I'm not going to get my hopes down based on it's unwatchable. It's the best. It's unwatchable. It's the best. I'm not listening to either of them. All right. I don't honestly believe either of those right now. But that's just my point of view. Doesn't mean I'm right. I could be completely wrong about that. Absolutely, I could be wrong. I'm just giving you my thoughts. All right. Let's see. Where did it go? David Bell writes, I'll just address it. Do you know how Rotten Tomatoes works? Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes goes out, gets all the film critics everywhere, from print, online, television, newspaper, wherever, finds out how many of them like a movie and how many of them dislike a movie, and then they just put up online, this percentage of critics like the movie and this percentage of the critics dislike the movie. That's how Rotten Tomatoes works. It's just that simple. Let's see. What else got? Ewan Callister writes, John, what do you think about Blade Runner 2049 being 163 minutes long? 3 minutes off Transformers Age of Extinction running time. I won't know until I see the movie. Look, some movies should be 90 minutes long. Some movies should be 3 hours long. It's impossible to say until I sit down and watch the movie. If I watch the movie and it works and it's like, yes, this needed to be over 2.5 hours long. If that's the case, then perfect. If I watch the movie and goes, this felt way too dragged out, it would have benefited if it had a quicker pace and if it was snappier. And if this was like a 2-hour movie, 120-minute movie, that would have been better. Then I'll think it's too long. But it's really impossible for me or anybody to have a real educated guess without seeing the movie first to know what kind of a movie it is. Until we do, I just won't know. So I'm just going to trust the filmmakers that if it's 163 minutes, then I'll just trust them that they believe that's the right runtime for it, and we'll see how it works out. DC8 writes, is the Avenger Infinity War trailer dropping on September 29th? I'm hearing that rumor, but maybe Disney did say something official. I haven't seen any official word from Disney yet confirming that. But I'm hearing a lot of people spreading that rumor around that September 29th is when the trailer's dropping. It's a perfectly fine date if they do it, and it's perfectly fine if they don't. We'll just have to wait and see. Thoughts on the Titans TV show? To be honest with you, complete disinterest. I have no interest in Teen Titans at all. Doesn't mean the show won't be great, and I'll definitely check it out and give it its fair shake. But yeah, Teen Titans is honestly something that doesn't interest me that much. Let's see here. Darren Jensen writes, do you think Wonder Woman has a shot at a Best Picture nomination? Fuck no. No, doesn't deserve it. Not at all. It's a really good movie, and I enjoyed it a lot. But there's a number of really good movies this year that I enjoyed a lot that are not, no, they should not be considered. I really love It. It's great. You've heard me talk about It so much. That doesn't deserve a Best Picture nomination. Wonder Woman, I mean, for hell's sake, Wonder Woman's not even the best comic book movie of the year. It's not even the best comic book movie of the year, let alone be considered one of the best pictures of the year. And honestly, and I don't mean this, there's no way to say this that it doesn't come across as condescending. And please believe me, I do not mean for this to sound condescending. But normally what I find is when people say, like, Batman versus Superman should have been nominated for Best Picture, or when I hear people say Ant-Man should have been nominated for Best Picture, or I hear people say Wonder Woman should be nominated for Best Picture, generally I find that people who are thinking that probably have only watched like 15 movies this year. Because no, it doesn't. I mean, Wonder Woman, I enjoyed it thoroughly. You saw my review. I liked it a lot. I put it on the same level as an Ant-Man, which I enjoyed a hell of a lot. I put it on the same level as a Doctor Strange, which, you know, I enjoyed a hell of a lot. I think it's better than Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I also enjoyed. But it doesn't even compare to Logan. Like, don't even start. It doesn't compare to Logan. Like, who would have thought at the beginning of the year, which studio, will DC or Marvel have the best comic book movie of the year? Ha! Neither. Fox has the best comic book movie of the year. So no way in hell does Wonder Woman deserve to be nominated for Best Picture. Not a chance in hell. No way. I enjoyed very much, but I would have said the exact same thing if you suggested to me that Doctor Strange should have been nominated, that Ant-Man should have been nominated, or films of that ilk. So no, that's just my personal opinion. Maybe you do. And that's the great thing about movies, is that it's all subjective. Just because I think one way doesn't mean you need to think that way. And it doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means the film is subjective and we all have different opinions and we can still be friends and talk about it. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, guys, while you're here, why don't you take a second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the thumbs up button. Make sure you give this video a like, leave a comment, leave your thoughts. Remember, in the chat board, guys, we want to have disagreement and discussion and debate, but let's remember, we're all film fans together. We're all friends. Let's be friendly and civil to one another as we do it. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks so much for joining me, and until next time, bye-bye.